On 6 June 1944, at 0710 beneath the towering cliff of Pointe du Hoc, Normandy, Companies D, E, and F of the United States Army Second Ranger Battalion stepped from their landing craft onto a shingle beach lashed by the English Channel's waves. The cliff, approximately 100 to 115 feet, approximately 35 meters of near-vertical chalk and clay, blazed with machine gun chatter and the sharp blasts of grenades. Rocket-fired grapnel hooks launched from the landing craft hurled ropes up to the rim as sections of ladders were wrestled into place and raised under fire. The destroyer, United States ship Satterlee, and the Royal Navy's His Majesty's ship Talybont hammered the crest with gunfire while spray and the bitter smoke of cordite drifted over the beach. Boots sank into the wet gravel. Every step drew fire from above. The height of the cliff, taken under unrelenting enemy fire, defined the morning's desperate struggle. Lieutenant Colonel James E. Rudder, commanding the assault, built his plan on precision and speed. His force had trained for months on cliff scaling and carried as light as possible to move fast. The battleship, United States ship Texas, had opened the bombardment at 0550, its 14-inch salvos tearing craters across the promontory, yet German defenders clung to their posts. Rudder's orders were unyielding land early scale. The cliff seized the position and neutralized the artillery that threatened the invasion beaches. Naval gunfire suppressed, but could not entirely silence the weapons raking the ropes and ladders. At 0710, the first ramps fell into the churning surf. Waves rocked the boats and soaked men and gear. Some grapnels failed to bite on the slick rim ropes sliding off rain-wet stone. Other lines held and Rangers swarmed upward, hand over hand, while bullets sparked and grenades tumbled. Others climbed freehand fingers digging for purchase in fractured chalk. Loads of rifles, grenades, and climbing gear tugged at shoulders. By about 0730, leading parties crested the rim and rolled over into a hail of small arms fire. Defenders tried to sweep the ropes and stare the slope with grenades sending shards of rock and clay down the face, but the Rangers fixed bayonets and fought through to secure a fragile foothold. The ascent was a calibrated union of engineering and will. Rocket launchers on the craft threw barbed hooks and lines that had to bear the weight of multiple climbers while withstanding bursts of fire. Ladder sections extended by hand shook and flexed their rungs, slick with seawater and mud. Naval gunners walked rounds close to the edge, and the climbers synchronized their moves with the barrage's pauses, exploiting brief lulls. By roughly 0740, enough Rangers were on top to form a perimeter thin exposed, but holding against bunkers and trenches only yards away. From the crest, the defenders stared down through the dawn haze at an improbable sight lines that refused to fall, ladders that kept rising, and dark figures who would not stop coming. The position the Germans had deemed nearly impossible to take was no longer a sheer wall, but a contested ground cracked open by Rangers who had scaled approximately 100 to 115 feet under fire and made the top. The Rangers, now clinging to the cliff top of Pointe du Hoc, faced a mission rooted in the geometry of destruction. Nestled between Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, the promontory jutted into the English Channel, its elevated position offering a commanding view of both invasion sectors. German engineers had prepared the site to house 6 155mm guns, French-made artillery pieces, that the Germans designated as 15.5 cm Canoni 418F. On D-Day, the concrete works stood ready, but the guns themselves had been moved inland before the landings. The Rangers would have to locate and disable them. Those weapons, capable of long-range fire, measured in many miles, could have raked the landing beaches with devastating accuracy, threatening thousands of troops and the fragile foothold of the Allied invasion. The Rangers' task was to scale the 100-feet cliff, seize the position, and ensure the guns could not be brought to bear on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944. Failure would leave the beaches vulnerable, potentially unraveling the largest amphibious assault in history. The promontory's defences were a study in fortified engineering. Concrete casemates, observation posts and trench lines sat on the cliff top. Barbed wire minefields and machine gun nests created a layered defence, manned by elements in the sector, including formations of the German 352nd Infantry Division and coastal units. The Rangers, numbering approximately 225 at the outset, faced an estimated garrison supported by those obstacles. If brought into action, 155mm guns could deliver sustained, rapid, high-explosive fire at long range. The 2nd Ranger Battalion's mission required not just capturing the cliff, but holding it against counterattacks until relief arrived, a task complicated by the isolation of their position miles from the main invasion force. Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder understood the stakes. His plan hinged on speed, aiming to neutralize the artillery threat within hours of landing. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, had been the first hurdle, but securing the promontory demanded clearing bunkers and finding the displaced guns. The Rangers carried thermite grenades intended to fuse breach and traversing mechanisms beyond repair once the pieces were located. Naval support, critical to their survival, came from the destroyers. United States ship Satterlee and His Majesty's ship Talybont, which adjusted their fire with spotters to pin down German positions even as the risk of friendly fire hovered over the chaotic battlefield. The German perspective shifted as the Rangers gained the cliff top. From their bunkers, defenders who had deemed the position impregnable saw it breached machine guns unable to halt the climbers. The bombardment from the battleship, United States ship Texas, beginning at 0550, had forced them to hunker down. Yet the removed guns remained a latent threat until found and destroyed. The Rangers' swift ascent with a foothold, formed by about 0740, disrupted German calculations and forced a hurried response. The mission's urgency stemmed from the artillery's potential to disrupt the invasion. Each 155mm gun could throw heavy shells, capable of cratering landing zones and endangering landing craft. Success depended on locating these weapons concealed from easy observation and rendering them inoperable with thermite. The cliff top, pocked with craters from naval fire, offered little cover and exposed the Rangers to counterattacks. Radios, imperfect in range and reliability under Normandy's conditions, sometimes struggled to maintain contact with naval support, leaving units to rely on visual signals. Destroyer gunfire sustained when called and walked close to the edge remained their lifeline as the Rangers pressed inland. The terrain itself was an adversary. Hedgerows and sunken lanes of the bocage masked German movement and complicated navigation. The Rangers, trained for cliff assaults, now faced a ground fight against a determined enemy, their lightweight climbing kit leaving them short of heavy weapons against entrenched machine guns. The mission's success hung on finding and disabling the guns before the Germans could reposition or bring them into action, a race against time, as the invasion unfolded below. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, echoed as a reminder of the Rangers' audacity, now tested by the need to hold their fragile perch. The Rangers, now entrenched atop Pointe du Hoc on the 6th of June, 1944, faced the next phase of their mission with disciplined precision. Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder, commanding the 2nd Ranger Battalion, directed his men from a shallow crater near the cliff's edge, his voice cutting through the din of gunfire and naval shelling. The assault plan, meticulously rehearsed, called for Companies D, E, and F to secure the promontory and locate the 6 155mm guns threatening Omaha and Utah beaches. The Fifth Ranger Battalion, under Lieutenant Colonel Max Frederick Schneider, waited offshore poised to reinforce if Rudder signaled success by 7 hours 30 minutes. Otherwise, they would divert to Omaha Beach. The battleship, United States ship Texas, had opened its bombardment at 0550. Its 14-inch shells carving craters across the cliff top, while the destroyers, United States ship Satterlee and His Majesty's ship Talybont, maintained suppressive fire close to the rim. The Rangers reached the shore at 7 hours 10 minutes, and by about 7 hours 40 minutes the first men crested the 100-foot cliff, securing a foothold under relentless enemy fire. Rudder's command relied on speed and coordination. His force, approximately 225 men at landing, carried specialized equipment, thermite grenades to disable guns, lightweight rifles, and climbing gear tested for the 100-foot ascent. The plan allotted a short window to scale the cliff and to neutralize the guns, a timeline strained by German resistance. Naval gunfire suppressed machine gun nests, but could not eliminate them. The Rangers, organized into small teams, fanned out across the promontory, clearing bunkers with grenades and bayonets. Radio communication faltered in the chaos, forcing reliance on visual signals to coordinate with the Fifth Ranger Battalion. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, remained the mission's defining challenge, a metric etched into every movement. The German defenders' elements in the sector, including formations of the 352nd Infantry Division and coastal units, reacted with disciplined ferocity. Their bunkers, reinforced with thick concrete, withstood much of the naval bombardment, sheltering machine gunners who raked the Rangers' positions. The Germans had anticipated an assault, but not the speed of the cliff ascent. From their perspective, atop Pointe du Hoc, Rangers poured over the rim, defying gunfire, their silhouettes merging with the smoke of shell craters. The defenders, caught off guard, shifted to close-quarters defense, lobbing grenades to disrupt the attackers' momentum. The Rangers' rapid advance forced a German withdrawal from forward positions, but the guns remained unlocated, having been moved inland beyond the casemates. The naval support critical to the Rangers' survival required precise timing. The destroyers adjusted their fire based on visual cues from the cliff, their 5-inch guns walking rounds close to friendly positions. The casemates proved empty where the 155 millimetre guns were expected, confirming that the artillery had been displaced before the landings. This discovery, at approximately 8 hours, shifted the focus to the surrounding terrain where hedgerows and orchards offered cover for concealed pieces. The mission's success now hinged on locating these weapons and rendering them inoperable with thermite before German reinforcements could regroup. The Rangers' training honed on cliffs in England proved its worth. Each man carried about 40 pounds of gear optimized for mobility but limited in sustained combat. The grapnels fired to scale the 100-foot cliff lay discarded their purpose served. Continued destroyer fire disrupted German counterattacks, allowing the Rangers to push inland. Rudder, directing from his improvised command post, prioritized speed, knowing the guns could bring long-range fire onto the beaches if recovered. Radios struggled to maintain consistent contact, underscoring the force's isolation, a small unit holding a critical position against a larger enemy. The cliff top, scarred by bombardment, offered little cover, forcing the Rangers to rely on craters and captured bunkers. The mission, now past its first hour, demanded adaptability, as the search for the guns intensified with the invasion's success hanging in the balance. Atop Pointe du Hoc, on the 6th of June, 1944, the Rangers of the 2nd Ranger Battalion pressed forward through a landscape torn by naval shells and German resistance. By 8 hours they had secured a fragile perimeter, but the 6 155 millimetre guns, the mission's primary target, remained unaccounted for. Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder, directing his men from a cratered command post, ordered small patrols to fan out across the promontory, searching beyond the empty casemates. The cliff top, pocked with craters and littered with debris, offered little cover, forcing the Rangers to move low, dodging bursts from German machine guns. The destroyers, United States ship Satterlee and His Majesty's ship Talybont, continued their barrage with 5-inch guns, suppressing enemy positions but unable to pinpoint the hidden artillery. The Rangers, numbering fewer than 200 after the climb's casualties, faced a ticking clock. The guns capable of long-range fire threatened the invasion beaches below. First Sergeant Leonard Lomell and Staff Sergeant Jack Kuhn led one such patrol, moving south along a hedgerow lane flanked by dense foliage. The terrain, typical of Normandy's bocage, concealed German movements and potential ambushes. At approximately 8 hours 30 minutes, Lomell and Kuhn spotted 5 of the 155 millimetre guns camouflaged in an orchard, their barrels oriented toward the beaches. The guns, French-made 15.5 centimetre Canoni 418F, were unattended but ready for action. Their mechanisms intact and ammunition stacked nearby. Lomell, carrying thermite grenades, acted swiftly. He and Kuhn placed the incendiary devices on the gun's breech mechanisms, the thermite burning at roughly 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, to fuse the metal, rendering the weapons inoperable. The patrol returned to their position, secured additional grenades, and with other Rangers disabled the remaining gun and smashed the sights on all pieces, ensuring no threat to the beaches. The discovery was a turning point. The Germans, anticipating bombardment, had relocated the guns from the casemates to the orchard, preserving their operational capacity. From the German perspective, in the orchard's shadow, Rangers emerged from the hedgerows, grenades flaring, melting the guns' mechanisms before defenders could react. This swift action disrupted the German plan to shell the invasion. The Rangers' success, however, came at a cost. Their position isolated on the promontory faced growing pressure from forces in the sector, including formations of the German 352nd Infantry Division, whose 914th Grenadier Regiment prepared to counterattack. Signal difficulties complicated coordination with potential reinforcements offshore. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, lingered as a testament to the Rangers' audacity, but the ground fight now demanded endurance. The Thermite grenades, each weighing about 2 pounds, were a triumph of engineering designed to disable heavy artillery with minimal explosives. The Rangers, carrying roughly 40 pounds of gear, moved with precision, their training enabling them to navigate the bocage and neutralize the threat. Continued destroyer fire provided critical support, targeting German positions as the Rangers consolidated their hold. The empty casemates, initially a source of confusion, underscored the Germans' tactical shift, but Lomell and Kuhn's patrol proved the mission's necessity. The guns, if brought into action, could have delivered heavy shells onto the beaches, disrupting the invasion's fragile momentum. The Rangers' perimeter, now a patchwork of craters and captured bunkers, faced relentless pressure. German snipers hidden in the hedgerows picked at their lines, while machine gun fire from the 914th Grenadier Regiment tested their resolve. The Rangers, short of ammunition after the climb, relied on captured German weapons and intermittent naval support. Rudder, coordinating from his command post, prioritized holding the coastal road, cutting German access to the promontory. The orchard's guns, now silent and disabled, marked a decisive victory, but the Rangers' isolation grew acute. The invasion, unfolding on the beaches below, depended on their ability to hold Pointe du Hoc against mounting odds, with relief still hours away. The mission, rooted in the cliff's 100-foot challenge, now rested on the Rangers' tenacity in a ground war they were not fully equipped to fight. The Rangers of the Second Ranger Battalion, entrenched on Pointe du Hoc on the 6th of June 1944, now faced a grueling test of endurance. Having disabled the 5 155mm guns in the orchard, they held a narrow perimeter near the coastal road, their positions scarred by craters and exposed to German counterattacks. Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder, commanding from a shallow bunker, organized his men, now fewer than 180, after losses from the climb and initial fighting. Elements in the sector, including formations of the German 352nd Infantry Division, most notably the 914th Grenadier Regiment, launched counterattacks late on the 6th and into the 7th of June, aiming to reclaim the promontory. The Rangers, short of ammunition, relied on captured German rifles and intermittent naval fire from the destroyers. United States ship Satterlee and His Majesty's ship Talybont operating close offshore. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, had been conquered, but holding the ground demanded unrelenting vigilance. The German counterattacks were methodical, exploiting the bocage terrain. Hedgerows and sunken lanes concealed advancing troops, while snipers targeted Rangers in their makeshift defences. Elements of the 914th Grenadier Regiment pressed the Rangers' perimeter with machine gun fire and mortar barrages, rounds falling dangerously close to the defenders. The Rangers, equipped with gear suited for the climb, lacked heavy weapons to counter sustained assaults. Radios struggled in the battlefield conditions to maintain steady contact with naval support, forcing reliance on visual signals to direct destroyer fire. The Satterlee and Talybont, using 5-inch guns and walking rounds near the cliff's edge, disrupted German formations, but could not halt every probe. As the day wore on, ammunition ran low, further straining the Rangers' ability to hold. From the German perspective, advancing on Pointe du Hoc, Rangers clung to craters, their fire persistent, despite dwindling supplies defying the regiment's push. The Germans, expecting to overrun the isolated force, encountered fierce resistance with Rangers using bayonets and grenades in close-quarters skirmishes. The coastal road cut by the Rangers' position prevented German reinforcements from easily linking with other units, frustrating their efforts to regain control. The promontory's terrain, churned by naval bombardment, offered both sides limited cover, turning the fight into a brutal contest of attrition. The Rangers' tenacity, rooted in their training, held the line against odds, their perimeter shrinking but unbroken. Naval support remained a lifeline. The destroyers, coordinating with spotters, adjusted their fire to within a short distance of Ranger positions, accepting the risk of friendly fire to suppress German advances. The battleship United States ship Texas, operating offshore, delivered occasional salvos, its 14-inch shells cratering German assembly points. The Rangers dug into shallow trenches and captured bunkers, conserved ammunition, firing only at clear targets. Their thermite grenades used to disable the guns were gone, leaving them reliant on small arms and captured weapons. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, echoed as a symbol of their initial triumph, but the ground fight tested their limits, with each man carrying the weight of the mission's success. The Rangers' isolation intensified as the 7th of June dawned. The Fifth Ranger Battalion, diverted to Omaha Beach after missing the success signal, left Rudder's force without immediate reinforcement. The coastal road, a key objective, remained under Ranger control, disrupting German movement between Omaha and Utah beaches. The Germans, aware of the destruction of the guns, shifted to reclaiming the promontory for its strategic overlook, launching probing attacks through the night. The Rangers, outnumbered and outgunned, held their ground, their perimeter now a patchwork of craters and rubble. Continued destroyer fire provided critical support, but survival hinged on endurance until relief reached Pointe du Hoc on the 8th of June. The mission, once defined by the cliff's ascent, now rested on the Rangers' capacity to withstand a relentless enemy, with the invasion's broader success dependent on their stand. The Rangers of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, holding their battered perimeter on Pointe du Hoc, faced a critical realization on the 6th of June, 1944. The empty casemates discovered after scaling the 100-foot cliff had initially suggested a hollow victory, but the discovery of the 5 155mm guns in the orchard shattered that illusion. The Germans, anticipating heavy naval bombardment, had vacated the concrete casemates, relocating the guns to a concealed position in a nearby orchard, where they remained operational and capable of long-range fire against Omaha and Utah beaches. First Sergeant Leonard Lomell and Staff Sergeant Jack Kuhn's patrol, disabling the guns with thermite grenades, ensured the invasion's landing zones remained secure. The Rangers' mission, far from unnecessary, had neutralized a direct threat, validating the audacity of their climb under fire. The German strategy hinged on deception and resilience. The casemates, built of thick concrete, were designed to resist 14-inch shells. By moving the guns, forces in the sector preserved their artillery, positioning them in the orchard with ammunition stacked for immediate use. Each gun, designated 15.5 cm cannon 418F, could throw heavy shells to the beaches. The expectation was to bring them back into action once bombardment slackened. The Rangers' swift patrol upset this calculus. From the German perspective, in the orchard's cover, Rangers emerged from the hedgerows, grenades flaring, melting breach, and traversing mechanisms, rendering the battery useless before defenders could respond. The Rangers' success was no accident of fortune. Training on cliffs in England prepared them to adapt to the unexpected. Thermite grenades, burning at extremely high temperature, fused critical parts in seconds. The Rangers, now fewer than 180, after losses, maintained their perimeter against counterattacks from elements of the 914th Grenadier Regiment. Their position, bolstered by naval fire from the destroyers, united. States ship Satterlee and His Majesty's ship Talybont operating close offshore. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, remained a defining metric. Its conquest enabled the inland push that located the guns. Continued 5-inch destroyer fire suppressed German movement and bought time for consolidation. The empty casemates, initially a source of doubt, underscored the mission's urgency. Aerial reconnaissance, limited by weather and German camouflage, had not revealed the relocation. The Rangers had to uncover the threat on the ground. The orchard, screened by hedgerows, concealed the artillery from naval spotters, making Lomell and Kuhn's discovery a pivotal moment. Communications remained difficult, and signals of success did not immediately translate into reinforcement, adding to the unit's isolation as counterattacks developed. The coastal road held by the Rangers disrupted enemy movement and kept the promontory a contested stronghold. The guns' disablement achieved shortly after 8 hours, 30 minutes on the 6th, removed a threat capable of altering the invasion's outcome, affirming the Rangers' role within the broader Allied plan. The German response grew desperate. Elements of the 914th Grenadier Regiment probed the perimeter to reclaim the promontory's overlook. The Rangers, short of ammunition after many hours of combat, relied on captured weapons and disciplined fire to hold their ground. Destroyer support walked in close to friendly lines, disrupted assaults even as the risk of friendly fire persisted in the churned terrain. The Rangers' positions, craters, shallow trenches, and captured bunkers endured sustained pressure. Their purpose clear hold Pointe du Hoc until relief arrived. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, stood as the symbol of their opening triumph, now matched by their resolve to defend hard-won ground. On the morning of the 8th of June, 1944, the Rangers of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, battered but unyielding, held their shrinking perimeter on Pointe du Hoc. Fewer than 100 men remained fit for combat, their ammunition nearly exhausted after 2 days of relentless German counterattacks. Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder, commanding from a captured bunker, maintained discipline, directing his men to hold the coastal road, a vital artery severing German access between Omaha and Utah beaches. The 155 millimetre guns disabled in the orchard on the 6th no longer threatened the invasion, but the promontory's strategic overlook remained contested. Relief, long delayed, finally approached from Omaha Beach, bringing the Fifth Ranger Battalion, elements of the First Battalion of the 116th Infantry Regiment, and supporting armour from the 743rd Tank Battalion. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, lingered as the mission's defining metric, its conquest now a foundation for the Rangers' enduring stand. The relief force, advancing through Normandy's hedgerows, reached Pointe du Hoc by mid-morning on the 8th. The 5th Ranger Battalion, diverted to Omaha Beach after the success signal was missed on the 6th, brought fresh troops. The 116th Infantry Regiment added infantry strength, while tanks of the 743rd Tank Battalion provided mobile firepower with 75 millimetre guns. The Rangers, reduced to a fraction of their original strength, greeted the relief with weary determination, their perimeter a patchwork of craters and captured bunkers. The destroyers, United States ship Satterlee and His Majesty's ship Talybont, operating close offshore, continued 5-inch shelling to suppress German positions until the relief force secured the area. German counterattacks led in the sector by elements of the 914th Grenadier Regiment had intensified on the 7th, with probing assaults testing the Rangers' lines. Using the bocage to conceal movement, the Germans employed mortar and sniper fire from the hedgerows. The Rangers, short of ammunition after many hours of fighting, relied on captured German weapons, their own rifles down to scarce rounds. From the German perspective, advancing on the promontory, Rangers held to craters and shattered trenches, their fire disciplined despite dwindling supplies, blocking access to the road, and frustrating attempts to assemble a coherent counteroffensive. The terrain churned by naval bombardment offered limited cover to both sides, turning the struggle into attrition. The relief's arrival shifted the balance. Sherman tanks along the coastal road brought direct fire onto remaining strongpoints, while the 5th Ranger Battalion and the 116th Infantry Regiment swept the promontory and cleared scattered resistance. Facing fresh infantry and armour, German forces withdrew, and the hold on Pointe du Hoc was broken. The Rangers, relieved at last, handed over the position as their mission reached completion. Securing the coastal road helped link Omaha and Utah sectors and strengthened the Allied foothold. The 155 millimetre guns, fused by thermite, posed no further threat, their long-range fire neutralised by the Rangers' swift action on the 6th. The legacy of Pointe du Hoc extended beyond the hilltop. The ascent under machine gun fire and grenades showcased the effect of specialised training and engineered equipment. Rocket-launched grapnels for the 100-foot climb and thermite grenades burning at extreme temperature enabled a small force to achieve outsized results. The mission, costing over half the battalion's strength, underscored the human price of seizing a strategic point. Fewer than 100 Rangers remained combat effective by the eighth measure of the fight's ferocity. The promontory, once deemed near impregnable, became a symbol of adaptability, its capture reshaping the invasion's opening hours. The stand at Pointe du Hoc reverberated through the Normandy campaign. Disruption of the coastal road weakened German coordination, while destruction of the guns safeguarded the beaches. With infantry and armour in place after the relief, the Allied position solidified, enabling further advances inland. The cliff's height, 100 feet under fire, endured as a metric of courage and craft. The 2nd Ranger Battalion's mission, completed against steep odds, secured a critical victory and ensured the invasion pressed forward unbroken by the artillery threat that had loomed over the shore.